Bailey's got us going. Morning. You good? Good morning. There you go. Okay, welcome to the Monday morning meeting of the BOCC. Looks like we'll just go down the list. HR.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. First request I have comes from the prosecuting attorney's office. His chief criminal deputy is retiring in December, and he is requesting to start the replacement chief criminal deputy at step 4 effective December 16th.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And the next item I have is a request to fill from building and planning. Their admin assistant 2 signed a posting in another office, so she'll be leaving and they would like to fill her position. Admin assistant 2.
Assistant 2.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then I have a couple items for executive sessions at the end, performance of a public employee, and then collective bargaining.
Okay. We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Risk management's not here today. Budget.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. Couple things. I'm working with IT on enhancements to, we have an existing form in Laserfish called new personnel and salary changes. And we were only using that during the budget process. And so Human Resources and I have talked, and we'd like to enhance that and use it all during the year for documenting and having a repository and a routing of those items. So we're working on that and should have that sometime next year, first quarter.
So does,
yes.
is that going to replace that other document processing? Went by some kind of initial, it was subject to some kind of an inter-office review. Personnel. So
Yeah, well, it won't do away with pause forms because those are for PeopleSoft. This just gives us a better way of tracking when an item is approved by the commissioners, when it's effective, things like that. And it will assist us in keeping our salary, direct labor sheets updated as well. And it was something that already existed, so we're just trying to enhance it and utilize it in a better fashion.
I just had the impression that that pause system was kind of convoluted, multi-stepped, and but apparently not. Okay.
So,
You have a question?
I'm on unclear, excuse me, I'm unclear as to what these changes are. If you wouldn't mind helping me out on that.
On the form, this personnel changes.
Yeah, you said you currently have a form that you use at certain times of the year.
Budget, during budget.
Time. And then it is no longer used and you're trying to enhance that.
So that we can use it all during the year and we can track and have better records of when items have been approved and when for changes on personnel.
So as of right now, how would the tracking help us?
As of right now, how would it help me?
Well, you're saying it would help you track things. And so what's the value of tracking?
So we keep track of the items in our, for the budget to look at direct labor cost and to keep those all during the year as updated as possible. And so this would help us with just another tool to do that and to be more concise. And sometimes we have questions that some people ask, something got approved, but it takes a little while before it happens. And so we would be able to go back to the repository and see when that item was actually approved and exactly what was approved to make sure that it goes in right.
I'd like to chat with you about this
Okay.
offline.
Okay, sure, sure. Any other questions about that? We're also working on levy information. We've been collecting information from special districts. And so we have a public hearing set for next week on all of those special district levies. And we've been working to get those all in. So, and we will also be presenting next week the general fund as well as the road fund levy for a public hearing. And so I'm still proceeding with, and I just want to make sure I'm still proceeding with not taking the 1%, the allowed 1%.
I think you were going to give us both figures so we could see
Yes,
the impacts.
yeah, so I can do that. I forgot to bring it. It's
Uh,
approximately $200,000 annually.
So I think our question is, without the 1%, what does the budget look like? How
Yeah.
bad is it? And we can then mentally at least add the 200K or so.
If you'd like, in tomorrow's workshop, I'm I'm also preparing fees. And so I'll bring that tomorrow during that workshop, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I can get everything put
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
And also, I have for you, I don't know if y'all get this. Do you get the state's economic and revenue update their monthly updates? I'm
I
gonna give you,
haven't seen it.
I'm gonna give you an executive summary here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit of good news in this. One, they're saying the U.S. Employment increased 150,000 jobs in November. And then U.S. And I'm sure you've seen this, but the consumer prices were unchanged compared to September for the month of October, and for the year, they're up 3.2% over the year. And then very happy about this one. Oil prices fell $7 a barrel last month. But on the flip side, it says that Washington job growth is trending down and that Washington housing construction is slowing, which I think we've already been seeing anyway. So that's kind of their executive summary.
I never know how to take these job reports because to my knowledge, every month they've given us a figure, then they've had to adjust it down. So they've never been true numbers. So I never know how to take them, but.
Yeah.
but,
And that's a nation, that's a national, and
yeah,
I prefer to look at, they didn't spell out the local,
yeah,
so.
And it's hard to know what to do with the consumer prices. Anybody that believes we're only 3.2% more expensive this year than last year probably hasn't been shopping lately.
Mhm.
So it's a problem we always have here is we get a lot of data that is basically useless.
I'm a believer in trust but verify.
Yeah. At this point, that was a good thing when Ronald Reagan was president. We have slid down a moral slope since then. So I'm not sure you can start out with trust.
Any other
so-
questions for me?
So particularly difficult to follow is the next to last paragraph, the last complete paragraph, when it talks about layoffs. Totaling a certain amount, which is a 22% increase, but it's 164% increase over last. What's going on? It's pretty hard to
Yeah.
calculate that. Scott Bailey, I understand, is the one who has specialized in the local predictions for going by county, and that'll be coming out. I
You know-
would say this week, but this week I have no idea.
Yeah,
what's coming out.
typically it comes out in November, right?
Well, they come out each month, yeah,
Okay.
and look for that one, because that gets into Cowlitz and Clark and Wahkiakum counties tracking. But we've also, the idea that construction is down, that's been reflected by our own building and planning. The number of permits have slowed down, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've seen a decrease in the fees too, the dock fees, which should indicate that
Yeah.
also.
And they
Yeah.
seem, the dock fees, when I reported last month, that's the auditor tracks all of that and does a very good job on that. And they look like they've slowed down, but it looks like they're staying stable, as far as dollar amount, but. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's 1,001 questions in here that I'll pretend I didn't read this.
Okay. I didn't prepare it. I just collected it from the state and thought it might be a good tidbit to look at. Like I said, you have to look at local items, and they don't have anything local on this report for us.
I will ask you one sort of mechanical question. When it says 3.2% over year, is that September to the September, or are they saying?
They typically do it September they do it a 12-month period.
I didn't ask that properly. So sometimes you say, last September, I went to the park 3 times. This September, I've gone to the park 8 times. So I've gone 8/3 as many times this year as I did last September. This September's last September. This 3.2% is taking the prices in September, and then watching the prices do this, and then I'm here this September, and I just say, that's only 3.2% above this September. That's what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do any integration
Right.
in the middle there. Then I
That's what-
really don't
that-
believe the 3.2%.
It's just a real narrow snapshot. It does,
Mhm.
yeah.
If there's any use at all, it's in the trends
Yeah.
in order to predict, and
Right.
it doesn't look like we're falling off the precipice in terms of a turn down.
A lot will depend on what the BRICS do and the repatriation of the several trillion that are overseas.
Any other questions for me? You'll see me tomorrow in a workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Correction.
Tomorrow, that's going to be a pretty long workshop in the afternoon, right?
But I hear we're just here today and tomorrow. We're gone Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, no,
Thursday,
not,
Friday.
it's just I
Yeah.
have to cancel the dinner date.
Yeah.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections.
I'll provide a brief update on our population this morning. We were at 193, which is lower than we've been, with 33 bookings over the weekend, also lower than we've been. But it is typical this time of year to see a bit of a decline in population as well as bookings.
Something about family get-togethers?
The weather, I'm not sure. And I pulled some numbers from October of 22 to compare to October of 23 as far as arrests go. DUIs were up for that month, 75 and 22 versus 96 and 23. With the drug law changes, there were 9 arrests for drug-related charges in 22 in the month of October, and in 23, that was 114. So that's a significant difference with the misdemeanor drug possession.
Could you repeat that? Those numbers seem
In
astounding.
October of 2022, there were 9 arrests for drug-related offenses. So in 22, that would have to be like delivery. So something, not just possession. So with the change in the possession laws in 2023, we had 114 booked for drug-related offenses in October.
And when you say drugs, that's drugs and alcohol.
No, drugs.
Drugs.
And the theft, third, shoplifting is comparable, 109 in 22 versus 99 in 23.
How do they test the drugs? Like a breathalyzer is sort of obvious, but with drugs, they take a blood sample on you?
Those would be captured under the DUIs, but yes, they have to get a drug sample. If the person refuses the drug sample, they have to get a warrant from a judge and take them to the hospital for a blood draw.
So that's just a lot of extra effort, a lot of extra expense too.
Sure.
Well, you have to have the proof. You have to have the evidence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a breakdown on what kind of drugs?
No, especially with the drug possession ones. I mean, that are the DUIs that are related to drug use. That return comes back much later than they typically aren't still going to be in jail when the results come back from the lab.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
Hey.
it's a lot harder to detect if you're driving impaired with marijuana or opioids.
Sure.
And
It's much less common. Most DUIs are alcohol related.
but you said these 114 are all,
Well, that's 114 of drug related, like possession or delivery or
oh,
not DUI related.
oh, thank you.
Yes. And some good news, we had 2 murders in October of 22 and 0 this year. So that's better. Camping, unlawful camping citations have gone up as well. We had 4 in October of 22 and 23 for October and 23. So at the end of the year, I'll do a full review of all of 22 versus all of 23. Any questions?
I do have a question for you, and it's just for information for myself, because I saw a lot of press when in Spokane last week about state of Washington. They did a sting on pedophiles and arrested over 300, and there was like 15 from Cowlitz County. Does that put any pressure on our system? I mean, do they come through us, or do they just pick them up and all?
No, we received all those bookings. I think
Okay.
maybe it was 13 over a weekend a few weeks ago. It was coordinated, I believe, by a federal, maybe FBI, with local law enforcement assisting.
So do they transfer those out to wherever they're doing, or we just hang on to them?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think the
okay.
bail was set on most of those around 100 to 150,000. Some bailed out, some are still in custody.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
IT.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. Good morning. So an update on the phone system. We are excitedly removing the legacy system. So my team kind of feels like a victorious Viking pulling out that legacy hardware. So they're pretty excited about that. We are still moving over our analog phones. So we've completed changes over at the jail and then kind of working out to all the other departments. Last week, I provided Commissioner Mortensen with the request or inquiry on internet service provider costs. Did you have any questions to that? Okay. And on the agenda for next week is the IT HVAC replacement. So back in July, we had a catastrophic outage to where our HVAC system failed and it needs to be replaced. Facilities has gone out to bid and we are taking the lowest bidder. And so that will be presented to you next week. Other than that, we're just kind of working on projects. I wanted to acknowledge David Feldman. He did the auditor's office Eagle recorder system. He migrated the database from Oracle over to our SQL database, which is high availability and easier to maintain because it's all on one platform. So a good shout out for that. Other than that, I don't have anything to report unless you have questions.
Is there a future in which there is no Oracle here?
There may be.
That's too difficult though, isn't it? Yeah.
Except isn't People a
PeopleSoft,
spin-off of
mhm.
Oracle? That's
It
an
is.
Oracle system.
Yes.
I think we're stuck with People system.
PeopleSoft.
Run that by again.
The People software,
Oh, it sits on Oracle.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we,
And then until we figure out what we want to do with PeopleSoft, but I shouldn't say it that way. I don't like PeopleSoft, but it's there. And then at some point, maybe 20 years from now, we won't be on PeopleSoft.
obviously an issue for a different commission.
No, I'm planning to hang around till then.
Good goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Miscellaneous. I know
Oh,
you had some
yeah.
comments or questions on the,
So I wondered, the WASAC was called the annual legislative meeting or
The leadership conference. It's called the Leadership Conference. I
right.
think that's the, yeah.
And in one form or another, we all three attended that, but because we can't really talk about it, I wanted to ask them about a simple mechanical question and then a much more complex question. The simple mechanical question, at the end, just before the break, there was a motion to allow 3 or 4 counties to come in with dues that are far less than they currently were supposed to pay. Notice how I carefully said that. Did that pass?
No, there were no changes approved on that portion of the bylaws. It was an overall update of the bylaws. Which
Right.
included a recalculation of the amount, particularly.
But then Michael Largent put out put a motion saying he wanted to cut them back, and then we broke. That did not pass.
Didn't pass it. No.
Okay, good. So that's a mechanical question. The more complicated question starts out with, I heard many people say, well, I heard a few people say, it's very important for the counties to unite in WASAC to present one picture to the state. And I'm scratching my head and thinking, isn't that what the governor is? Isn't that what we do through the legislature? And then that gets me to thinking, how can we, when we suffer badly from Snohomish, King, and Pierce County controlling the legislature, essentially, why would we let them control Wasack? And that was stopped, but it violates the speaking as one voice for all the counties. And then there's an ongoing threat from Snohomish and King and Pierce and maybe a couple others that if they don't get what they want, they'll leave Wasack. And I'm thinking, what's so bad about that? We've got about 30 counties who have almost the same common interest. Why wouldn't we let Wasack go and us form a different Wasack? You see where I'm going? How, Kathy, how much do we pay Wasack in dues?
It's over 20,000 a year. But I think this is, I'm a little confused because there's actually two that seem to be very similar. And one's Waco. Am I saying that right? Wasack and then Waco?
Yeah.
So, WACO are the other elected officials, statewide organizations. WASAC are the county commissioners,
Okay,
county executives, county councils, that legislative branch.
Okay.
So auditor, assessor, and that whole group, they have their own. Sheriffs have their own.
okay.
Coroners
That's
have-
what the difference
The coroners
is.
have the most interesting acronym. It's the Washington Association of Medical Examiners and Coroners. No, coroners and medical examiners. And if you pronounce it, it sounds like whack me.
Oh.
They do have a sense of humor, but
I don't have
So I
the
don't
sheet
know.
with me, but we're over 20,000, probably
There's
closer,
several-
closing on 30.
Yeah, because there's several different assessments. There's
Right.
the main one that's a little
Right.
over 20. And then there's several other assessments in addition to that one.
One, because I think we're in forest or timber, and then there's
Yes.
another for something, so it-
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
probably approaching over $30,000. 30,000.
it's, yeah. I'd probably say a
so
little under
here's
30.
one of the struggles that we have, Arn. In order to have the services provided by WASAC, it's a matter of personnel to be there to work with the legislature. That requires money. Okay, so under the proposed change that the bylaws committee came up with, our dues would have had to go up because King County's was going to go down.
Yeah,
So-
I
So the
completely
challenge
understand
is, at some point, we can't have an organization because there's 18 counties that are under 20,000 people. And they just don't have there's no way that they can have a full-time staff working on behalf of the counties. And so that's kind of the struggle. And as the bigger counties lower their assessments, because they still get the same number of votes as other counties.
Yeah,
If they leave, we have to go through the same thing. We are I think we're the 10th largest county. So we saw a 16% increase had the change been approved. So
yeah, I
that's-
totally appreciate that. I've got two problems. One specifically with that, which is I've never been fond of saying, oh, those guys got the money, we'll take it from them. And that's just a fundamental that I just can't get behind. If we're not serving King County's needs, we shouldn't be charging them. And that's because there's such a difference between those counties and the rest of us. Even though we're 10th largest, I feel very comfortable with dealing with Wacayacum or Skamania and those counties, we're kind of on the same page. Those other ones are like a different world. And I don't like to cross those lines where we tax them for our purposes. The other thing is, I don't know what we get out of WASAC per se, and I don't look at the details. I talk to the legislatures, and I've never had anybody come up to me and say, well, WASAC said, or, well, we were going to zig, but then WASAC told us to zag. I just haven't heard anything like that at all. So it may be that I just haven't heard and it exists, but having it's the whole thing seems weird to me.
You know,
I don't mind the money if it's 30,000 with apologies to the taxpayer. It's a big moral, ethical, and practical issue above the money.
yeah. Well, you know, it was a little ironic sitting and listening to that because I come through industry that is a cooperative, and we had the same struggles where the big boys, your Boeings and your huge credit unions had different needs, and they were helping support the others. And I don't know where that's at these days, but they had to work through those same type of issues.
One of the interesting things that didn't come out, I don't know if you caught it, but the big counties definitely said they will continue to support their share of the lawsuit special assessment, because the lawsuits against the state affect every single county, and they're more than willing to pay their fair share, which is they pay most of it.
Yeah.
So
We-
that was interesting. To them, that was a direct conflict. Probably one of the biggest lawsuits that is still ongoing is getting a fairer reimbursement from the state for public defense. And I don't necessarily say that because Ian's in the room, but it is that we are just above Mississippi in the percentage of public defense that is reimbursed by the state. And that's not very much. That's not a very good measure. So legislature seems just happy with that, and it's been tough to get them to understand.
I hope there's nowhere in the audience from Mississippi.
They would probably, if they're here, they would probably agree. Otherwise, they'd still be living in Mississippi, right?
So anyhow, I just thought I'd throw that out, something for us to chew on, nothing to decide. But it's got some fundamentals in there that are worth thinking about.
You know, to be totally transparent, why WASAC cares is because the big counties fund a lot of what they do, and they depend on that money. And that's no different than the industry I came from. But we had some large credit unions that then they have to decide, well, do we fund some lobby efforts on our own for our interests while we still try to help some of the others? And some of them did that. And I think that's probably how it will end up shaking out. King and Pearson, those might want to.
You're driving me to the other unrealistic expectation I have, which is to understand that fundamentally government is the fact that you think you need a lobbyist in there is already a failure. And so we're just doing Band-Aids above everything else.
That I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just telling you the reality is what they do.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion.
The Public Services Department wanted to remind us that there is also a Washington State Association of County Engineers.
Oh,
Another one of those agencies.
another one of those agencies. Yeah. So any other miscellaneous? Jessica, what I have a note here is like 10 minutes for each. 10 minutes for performance of an employee and 10 minutes for contract negotiations. Okay, so we will adjourn to executive session and take care of them. Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. Jessica, I'll turn it over to you.
Jessica Warren, Human Resources again. I have a request from Building and Planning to move their planning manager to step 4, effective 12/1/2024, and then to also keep his current step date at 6/1/2024.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve that request.
Have a motion to approve that request. Any questions? See none? I call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Also vote aye. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Any other miscellaneous for the 10 o'clock meeting? See none, we will adjourn this meeting.
actually, mine says 11:01. So
Wow.
my clock says 11:01.
I don't know why your computer, mine says 10:57.
I didn't do anything, but I have a feeling IT snuck in a few minutes so I wouldn't be late all the time. I'm suspicious.
They know your habits.
That's a very difficult thing to do. Holy mackerel.
And I'm almost always here on time now. I guess it works. Almost. Oh.
You need to grow goatees so we can all sit here together.
I used to have half of us. I kept on plucking them.
Yeah.
I tried once. My mother.
Oh,
But okay, that's not gonna make it work.
yeah, that's not gonna work. Okay, we're here for the 11 o'clock public services meeting. Looks like I see building and planning here, but she took off. So what do you? Oh, okay.
Good morning, Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We'd like to start off with 2 executive sessions, one for contract negotiations and the second one, performance of a public employee, 10 minutes each.
Okay, 2 executive sessions, 10 minutes each, contract negotiations, performance of a public employee. Okay. We'll take care of those.
But it's probably like way over here because there's, I never assumed that she would be interested in that subject. She had to take an environment class the first year and she fell and that was not her path to going for. So now she's double. Probably walked in. How many people really get to work at, what the county, doing it now. It's proven to me that people do. People do. All these years, really doing.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 10 minutes until 11:30.
I only think two people respond, but like. And then we both their first. So you have Thanksgiving plans? Yeah. First Thanksgiving in one year. He's like, Dad, he's a freshman. Because it's off the ladder and he gets five. Yeah. Well, he started at 5. Okay. I don't know. It's 5. It's 5 or something. So he's been taking off the time. Yeah. And so he posted the first and he posted my so I was just talking myself and my girl. I'm home for my oldest daughter from college and my younger daughter. And they decided they were both going to their boyfriends during the middle of the day. And I'm like, oh, okay. So until 7 o'clock, it's just I'm like, my mom. But I think it's so you're related. Yeah. Yeah, I think about that. But that's fine because everybody can do their stuff. I feel bad. All these kids, if they're girls, they come to our house all the time. So it's really good for them. So it's all for them, you know, especially the stuff here with my older daughter. No, he transferred. Got accepted in Baylor for next year. He's going to Boise State. And I'm going to fall for active. Wow. So I guess that's pretty weird. Yeah, I think so. Do you shop on Friday for the weekend? No. This year we're not saying. So
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:36.
Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. We'll continue on. Building and planning.
Hello again, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. So we have the floodplain ordinance on for tomorrow as an agenda item on the board's agenda. This is the ordinance that we're repealing and replacing, Cowlitz County Code 16.25. And this is the one that the Planning Commission had 5 Planning Commission meetings, 5, there we go. We got the motion last month for 7-0 to approve the new language and to keep the 3-foot, 2-foot base flood elevation. SEPA was done in October, and so I'm going to hand it over to Wayne. We are going to recommend following FEMA's guidance and recommend to our board to maintain or to do the 1-foot base flood elevation and follow FEMA's guidance for that will, I'll let you take it.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. Wayne Nelson, Planning Manager. So just to back up a little bit, so this process was initiated as part of the regular update to the floodplain management ordinance, which happens periodically to assure compliance with federal regulation as far as eligibility for the flood insurance program. And so as part of that process, the Department of Ecology assisted the county and they reviewed it with respect to the state's model ordinance, which it is consistent with. DOE's role is effectively a advisory role versus a regulatory role, and that's still FEMA has that charge. Both FEMA and DOE have approved the draft ordinance in form for compliance with not only a state model but FEMA regulations as well. So we're good there. Really, the only outstanding issue is the elevation above base flood elevations required for structures. As we've discussed previously, it's currently 2 and 3 feet respectively, depending on the water course, meaning the Toutle and Cowlitz and all others. And per the board's direction, when we present this tomorrow for consideration, we're providing a alternative recommendation, which reflects the board's wish to keep it at 1 foot above base flood elevation, which is in compliance with FEMA standards and is the minimum federal standard. And so we're recommending consistency with that.
They come up with that from sitting in the meeting. They take the last, what they consider 100-year flood, and then that's where their base is, right? And I think that was 95.
Correct, as well as studies and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, and those base flood elevations are updated from time to time as data gets better or events occur. So it's not a fixed elevation because it is subject to change based on conditions. And so that 1 foot only represents whatever the most current data is the required minimum elevation. And so you'll, unless you have other questions or would like additional information from staff, that's largely what you'll hear tomorrow when we present it. There's really not a lot to expand on beyond that unless the board has specific or other questions.
Are there other things you would present to the public? That is to say, the big decision here is the 1 foot versus 3 feet.
So with that, if the board does, after consideration, decide to adopt their own findings, which would be necessary to substantiate the change from the Planning Commission's recommendations, staff would be providing the board with draft findings and a motion for consideration, and that would be available to the public as well. And I'm happy to provide those to the board ahead of time, so you have the night to review them, so you're not caught flat-footed at public hearing.
I'm just stuck down in the weeds. I've got a phobia about time commitments, and we got 15 minutes to do the whole process. So I don't know how that's going to work out. There'll be a lot of questions, I imagine. So I'm wondering if there's a way to present it such that you can, prioritize very succinct way with.
We can do that. We also have on the board's agenda that's already out there, the draft ordinance that is being presented tomorrow. There's just minor language changes, bringing it up to current, just changing language. The substantial piece is the base flood elevation
Right.
that our board will have to consider.
And I always like something like what it means to the citizens. Just that slide, this is what these changes really mean to an everyday citizen. Because we could always end up arguing about.
Yep.
Shouldn't that be a capital I?
And we will do that. The biggest benefit for the citizens is that they have less restrictions when they're building. And they will not cost them as much if we take it down to the FEMA regulations.
Yeah.
And do the 1 foot, it will save them. They can build it as tall or high as they'd like. It will just, the minimum will reduce their costs.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking
implicit
for.
in what you're doing is reflecting a philosophy of putting responsibility on the individual builder to decide. And that's probably worth the statement. I suspect the chairman will say that.
Yeah. That in looking at the document, that was really my focus. The other red lines and stuff that, Adam updated some verbiage and stuff didn't seem like any substantial.
No,
type-
they were very
type
minimal,
changes,
very minimal.
Yeah,
So the big update is the map and the height.
right.
Well, the map itself, they're incorporated by reference because they're FEMA maps.
Right.
Right. And so, yes, that's.
But the public should know that those maps do change from time to
Yes.
time.
Yes.
It just what you just emphasized. Today, if you were to build, you'd use this map.
Yep.
Tomorrow, you might be using a different map that
That's
we
correct.
don't control that it comes from.
Right.
So are we getting, I haven't had a chance to look through the minutes, are we getting the information from the planning commission on which they base their decision, their findings and the testimony? We usually get that in the discussions. This seems to be a significant departure from the past. If I understood you correctly, they unanimously approved the 2 to 3 foot change.
And they did, correct.
Okay, and so we're basically saying, we don't care what you said. You're wrong, and we're gonna change it.
They had been workshopped prior,
Yeah.
in prior meetings. And when this came about, we brought it to the board and asked kind of where you gentlemen would like it. Like where the planning commission, kind of like where you would like to direct staff to help assist with the planning commission. And then when we heard what the board's wishes were, we went back to planning commission a few additional times.
And they still said they disagreed with.
My interpretation of the planning commission's recommendation was really for 2 reasons. One, there wasn't any, I'll say, empirical data or evidence to sway one way or the other. There wasn't evidence to support why 2 and 3 feet is necessary. And there wasn't, on the other side, outside of it being the federal requirement, there wasn't any data saying 1 foot is sufficient in most instances because of X. And so without that data on either side, and we did reach out to the Army Corps, to DOE, and to FEMA, and there's been studies and there's been reports and whatnot, but none of those agencies came forward with any hard numbers, any real data. And so absent that, in my opinion, it was the planning commission's decision to be better safe than sorry. It's 2 and 3 now. Let's not reduce it at the risk of problem arising.
So you're supplying the minutes and stuff in as part of our review materials?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. How it affects the average citizen is an interesting interpretation because you're basically sending a message, develop more in the floodplain. You lower the standards, more land's available to be developed. So
It doesn't increase the net developable land. It just creates an additional threshold by which they have to develop. So instead of your first habitable floor being 1 foot above that base flood elevation, whatever it may be, you're now required to do 2 or 3 feet depending on where the property is located. With the 1 foot, it leaves that discretion, that responsibility on the builder or the property owner if they want to increase it above that. And it also has no impact on the flood insurance rates. So as a community as a whole, it doesn't impact them. That's not to say at some point down the road, if we have catastrophic events and whatnot, and those rates are reevaluated, things are always subject to change. But currently this 1 versus 2 and 3 feet has no impact on the flood insurance rates for the community.
you said FEMA used the last 100-foot or 100-year flood, which was 1996 high water, right?
Typically, anytime there's a new event such as that, or through study or otherwise, they have new data, they will update their maps. Also, if a private owner hires a surveyor to go out there and check the actual elevations, they can submit a request for a letter of map amendment. There's also the letter of map revision that's typically initiated by FEMA itself. So there's a couple of different ways and processes by which flood elevation can be altered.
The point I was kind of leading to is that we call it a 100-year flood, but they happen more frequently in this region.
Right.
I mean, there was
Essentially,
there was one in 1980 that wasn't caused by excessive rain. And, so I guess I'm a little bit more skeptical when they say, oh, based on our 100-year flood, it's not that serious.
Right.
We have this other thing that has caused a certain amount of gray hair in folks, because it's still happening. So.
Anything else on that one?
Just an observation that we spent more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, just amongst ourselves.
The other thing on the board's agenda tomorrow is Maxwell Farms. We're excited to see this one come in front of the board. They originally applied on the subdivision in 2007. So it's finally, they've met all their preliminary approval requirements, and it's 24 lots off Garden Street out in Lexington. So there will be a final plat and Mylar for our board to sign tomorrow. The applicant should be here, and we're excited to complete this one. It's been long overdue. And this is actually one, if we're going to talk about floodplain, that they had to meet the 2 foot, 3 foot requirement and had to bring in a lot of fill into that area before the requirement was met. So they've had to bring in a lot of additional fill into that area. So additional cost on the developer. But yeah, anyways, we're excited. This one, it'll be nice to get building permit plans in, flat lots, all same type size. So that'll be good.
And where's this at?
Off Garden Street out in Lexington. West Side Highway on the left, going north.
But
Is that the place where they were working and putting in road and doing all that? And now it's just kind of sitting
No,
there? That's a different one?
That's North Lexington Flats. Yes. Garden Street is actually off one of the side that you don't see from West Side Highway. It's off of one of the side streets.
Oh. Where's it come out then, on Rainbow or?
Louise?
Garden Street.
Garden.
Garden Street. Off of Louise.
I think it's Louise or John, I think.
Just
have
trying to
I-
figure what main one it
I'd have
directs
to
them to.
Go look at them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that one we're excited about. Like I said, long overdue. We're excited. And then Rick, you had brought up some citizen concerns, maybe committee, putting a committee together, or we're all about it. We think it's a fantastic idea. I just don't want to add another layer or extend time for any citizen or complainant to have to. So we
Yeah.
think it's a great idea. And maybe right now, our nuisance abatement coordinator meets pretty regularly or anytime as needed with the environmental health unit for when they have, depends on kind of whose complaint it is or which jurisdiction it's going to. And maybe if those two, maybe Andrea and Trevin, and then maybe one of your board staff wants to meet weekly, 15, 20 minutes, just to kind of what's current, what's up to date, what's.
Yeah, I think we've kind of just turned that over to Kelly, and I think that's
Okay.
kind of the idea behind it. We don't want to add another layer, and it'd be pretty efficient and stuff, but just as they come in and we know how to direct them or.
I appreciate that. And we will, knowing that, we will work with Kelly and make sure Trevin and Andrea know those are
Yeah,
who. Yep.
it just, to me, it seems if it's, I don't want a burden, but if we just seems to be having more of these type of things, and I think you probably are as pressure has. And if I know that somebody's looked and said, well, it fits here and we're doing this, then my answer when I get the email or the phone call is different than it is
Well,
now.
I think there's more of them because you as the board are more willing to listen to the citizens too. And so they want to be heard. And they appreciate that. So, I mean, it is, then they'll come knocking on our doors, but I mean, I think that's part of it. You know, you guys will listen to the citizens. We didn't always have that, so. And we have staff that are hired for these reasons, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I see this group has looked at it and says, well, it doesn't fit here, it's really just kind of if it's a neighbor's dispute, that's a
Yep.
different arena. I mean,
Neighbors dispute, or if it's not our jurisdiction, we
Yeah.
just push them to the right jurisdiction.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We'll try to be quick with the last few items here so we don't go into your lunch period. The next item we have is the USDA Wildlife Control Contract. That's actually on your agenda tomorrow on consent, and I want to give you some background on that. It's a one-year contract for helping us control some nutria and also removing and trapping beaver. It's an up to $20,000 contract. They charge $55 an hour. Just give you some context in the past, a beaver last year got removed by Diking District number, I think that was number 1. Lexington Diking District, and it cost about $1,200. Diking District number 3 had a lot of nutria they had to remove, and it cost about $12,000. We don't have that much nutria, but we do have some beavers working throughout the county. So we got this contract in place with USDA to be able to trap and relocate those beavers. So, and it's a standard USDA contract that's, like I said, it has a pretty large dollar amount attached to it, but it's an up to, and it's charged per hour for them to come trap and remove. So don't be scared by the dollar amount that's attached to that contract.
You said 20,000?
Yeah, I think that the contract is $20,102. So you'll see that tomorrow, and it's a contract good through, it starts November 1, going through September 30th of 2024. And then easements for Todd Road is also on tomorrow. Susan Eugenius, the county engineer, will be online along with Patrick Harbison. This is for a project that was completed in the early 2000s in Kalama. Unfortunately, some of the deeds were recorded incorrectly, so there's 6 new deeds tomorrow on the agenda. I couldn't tell you exactly what was wrong with those, but the errors were found when they started working on the deeds for South Cloverdale, and they were reviewing the easements and deeds on Todd Road and found the mistakes and want to correct those in the system. So they will, like I said, re-record those new ones. And so Susan and Patrick have the details of what they may have found if you have questions tomorrow on the consent agenda. Or if you want to, I can always have her, maybe she's working from home today, send you an email of what the errors were on those 6 items.
Do you know if they are east or west of the freeway?
Can tell you. I'm guessing east.
Okay.
But that'd be a
Is there a
guess.
portion of Todd Road that goes under the freeway?
On this, going towards the.
Or is it just on the west side, east side?
It's on the east.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I believe these are on the east side connecting up to Cloverdale,
Okay.
since that's where the next project's at.
So we don't,
Unfortunately, it's a 20-year-old project
yeah,
that they found the deeds in.
so you don't know if it's just clerical type stuff.
I'm
or-
hoping it is.
I mean,
The
I don't
information I got from.
I don't want to be taken from somebody if,
No, I don't believe it. That's why I said maybe it's best if Susan could reach out to you guys today with the email and say exactly what the errors were. She texted me this morning and said that's the reason those were on for tomorrow.
There's no change of money.
No, I think it's mainly because of its change of ownership too, is actually when they found some of the errors on here. So that's why I think it might be,
well, if this project's been completed for 20 years
yes, correct.
and no homeowner has found an issue at this point in time. So I'm assuming it's mostly clerical.
I would
Well,
guess, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is always interesting to see where the road is built and where the center line is on the
Correct,
map.
yeah.
It's
It could be,
often-
it could have been from the
pavement is-
survey.
Yeah,
Correct. Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah. But I'll have Susan reach out to you guys today.
Yeah.
apparently land moves over time.
It does in California. Anybody on the fault line, it does.
And talking about the Cloverdale project, we do have 12 warranty deeds that deal with permanent easements and also temporary construction easements. We'd like you guys give permission to the chairman to sign these. They add up to about $80,000 worth of easement fees, dollars that we'd actually put on the agenda in the next few weeks after we get these recorded. So if we could have the chairman sign today and we'll get them recorded and get them back to front of you guys at a later date. This is for the South Cloverdale project that will be taking place in 2024.
So did you, these have all been negotiated? These
Yes,
are
they have.
negotiated prices?
Correct, yes. Some improvements, also we did some timber cruising to the value of trees, some replacement of driveways, and then some, like I said, temporary construction easements, and then some full-time permanent easements.
And you mentioned that these are county dollars. Overall, this project though is subject to quite a couple of different major grants, right?
Yeah, federal
I mean,
dollars and state dollars, correct. I think it's about a $5-6 million project. I don't have the exact details in my head, but the local match is very small out of that.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I thought, so.
Anything pertaining to right of way, it's actually a county cost, though. We don't pass those on through grants. So this would be county road fund.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on that,
So
Mike?
we
Yeah.
need a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the negotiated leases or the negotiated right-of-way agreements on South Cloverdale Road. Anyway, I move we do that.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Comments, questions? Not seeing any. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You got it.
The last item I have on the list today is from facilities maintenance. I gave you guys a couple pictures. Actually, there's some more up here on the counter from the HHS parking lot, Health and Human Services. That got, we ground that out with Lakeside Industries and overlaid, paved that on Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday of last week. And then Friday, we put new curb stops in and painted. At the same point, that company went to North parking lot at HOJ, Hall of Justice, and restriped that parking lot. And so we're pretty much finalized that project, phase 1 for this year. Phase 2 next summer, we'll be doing grinding and paving the north parking lot that we just striped. We are also putting new signage in the north parking lot on the building for those, I think there's 12 stalls on the north side that's underneath the overhang, and putting up new sheriff parking only signs on the dike. So we should be completing that project here in the next week or so. But at the end of the year, it's quite a task for crews to get. We did the trees, and we did the south and the east parking lots and HHS parking lots all in the last 2 months. So quite an improvement over there. And hopefully take care of a lot of the ponding issues at the same time for the parking lots. So
So when we talked about the parking lot at the health department, HHS building, there was some discussion about redoing the front entrance because there's a little alcove. And this is what you have pictured. Is that the completed project, or is that before any improvements have
that's
happened?
before any improvements. I still think you're getting more bids for the alcove area for the door there. I think they initially came in kind of high. So I think they're still working on getting better pricing and coming back to you guys with options. I think Gina James and them mentioned last week, we used to have big flower pots and some barricades up front, but people actually just camp behind those and use those pots for other reasons than flowers.
Yeah.
Do you know if anything similar is planned for the museum? I know that back door is still wide open.
Yeah, that's been a challenging area for Joseph back there. I know we put some better lighting in that area, or maintenance did. But it might be as easy there as a cyclone fence with a gate, since it is kind of a high area, easy access to put something in. That might be, might not be the best option for HHS, but it'd certainly be a cheaper option to rather than doing a full pull down, lockable, not see-through wall, like the fence they're trying to put in a barrier. But I've seen other places do that more of a cost-effective way of just doing a tall cyclone fence and kind of boxing that area in.
Kind of like the iron gate that's across at the church.
I don't remember that one. Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that church. I'll have to look at that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that one
pretty
in there.
simple, pretty simple. We see it from our office there.
Window. Okay. So they put a barricade in their front doors with just iron gate.
Well, it's at the main, I don't think it's a kind of a side entrance.
Yeah.
That has the gate to it.
Okay. Take a look.
Anyway, no idea. All right. And you've been taking care of the angry email? The disgruntled
We
citizen?
I think it's actually a county employee. Yeah. So it was just the timing of that email. The next few days, we had other things going on in that same parking lot. While we're back there, we also worked on that north storm drain. We did the southeast storm drains, but we were working on the north one. While we had the lot shut down already for striping, we went ahead. It actually has a pump system in that north drain to pump it up to get it out of there. So we made sure the pumps were working, which they are, and made sure there was no clogs, and then look through the lines with camera to make sure that there was no damage or any failure of that pipe. So we should have better drainage there, but time will tell. I'm sure the employees will tell us when it's not draining well.
All right.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Savannah? Any miscellaneous before we adjourn this one? Okay. We will adjourn. It looks pretty good over at HHS. That was pretty rough little. It was hot.
Yeah, especially that back one.
Yeah.
There was concern about trying to grind or overhang or what. They parked it down vehicles there, so they'll get underneath there without getting damage.